My best friend slept with my fiancée for 8 months while I paid for our wedding venue deposit. So I called off the engagement, emptied our joint account, and made sure everyone in both our lives knew exactly who he was. Neither of them saw it coming. That part still makes me smile. I am Theo. No, wait. I keep starting with my name like this is a resume. Let me try again. 3 weeks ago I was a 34-year-old structural engineer with a mortgage, in Barrie, Ontario, a fiancée I had been with for 6 years, and a best friend I had known since grade 9. I had a wedding date. I had a caterer booked. I had a future that looked exactly the way I had worked for it to look. Now I have none of those things. And I have never slept better in my life. My fiancée. I will call her my fiancée because that is what she was until she wasn't. And I met at Western. She was doing her undergrad in kinesiology. I was halfway through engineering, and we met at one of those house parties where nobody knows whose house it actually is. She was standing by the kitchen counter arguing with someone about the Blue Jays bullpen, and I thought, I need to know this person. Smart, sharp, the kind of woman who had opinions and defended them. We started dating 3 weeks later. By the time I moved to Barrie for work, she came with me. That was 4 years ago. My best friend. I will call him my best friend because that is what I thought he. And I go back to Sudbury, grade 9 gym class. He moved to Barrie 2 years after I did, took a sales job at a dealership out on Essa Road, started renting a place about 10 minutes from ours. He became part of our life, the way water finds the lowest point. Sunday night dinners. Long weekends at the cottage my family has up near Huntsville. He was standing beside me at my grandfather's funeral. When I got down on one knee last December at the Elora Gorge Inn, he was the first person I called. I need you to understand how long I had known this person, before I tell you what he did. The last few months before everything broke open, my fiancée started being difficult to reach. Not impossible, not dramatic about it. Just slightly harder to get a hold of during the day. She worked as a physiotherapist at a sports clinic in Innisfil. And her hours were genuinely irregular, so I told myself that explained it. Clinics got busy. Patients ran over. Evenings felt the same too. A little quieter, a little more distracted, but she had mentioned she was working toward her certification in manual therapy, and studying took time. I believed her because I had no reason not to. My best friend started checking in less often around the same time. Nothing dramatic, he just got harder to pin down. Cancelled on me twice in October, once in November. Said the dealership was doing an end-of-year push, and they were all working Saturdays. That tracked. He had complained about that before. Looking back, the timing is so obvious it makes me feel stupid. At the time, I just thought two people I loved were going through busy patches. Because that is what happens in your 30s. Everyone is busy. The thing that started it was not dramatic. It was a restaurant receipt. I found it in the pocket of my fiancée's winter coat in late November. When I was taking it in to get the zipper fixed. The Keg, Barrie South location, table for two, 187.43 on Tuesday night, 3 weeks earlier. The Tuesday she had told me she was at a study group with colleagues from a clinic in Newmarket. I stood in the coat shop parking lot, holding that receipt, for probably 4 minutes. Then I put it back, had the zipper fixed, drove home, and hung the coat back in the closet without saying anything. Because I am an engineer, I do not react to a single data point. I look for a pattern. Over the next 2 weeks, while my fiancée believed everything was normal, I started paying quiet attention. I checked our joint credit card statements, the ones I had always left her to manage, because she was better with the budget tracking. In 3 months, I found 2 other restaurant charges I had no memory of, a parking charge downtown on a Friday I had been in Toronto for work, and 3 charges at a boutique hotel in Collingwood on a weekend. She had told me she was visiting her sister in Hamilton. I pulled up my phone records. Not hers. Mine, looking at the timestamps of her texts to me on the days that didn't add up. Late replies. 2-hour gaps where she had been active on her phone but not to me. The Collingwood hotel charge was the one that locked it in. $310 for one night. I knew the place. A boutique property on the main strip that we had actually talked about staying at once. She had said it looked romantic. I want to be honest about what I did next, because some people reading this might call it an invasion of privacy, and maybe they are right. But when your gut is telling you something, and 3 months of financial records are backing your gut up, you stop worrying about optics. I borrowed her iPad one evening while she was in the shower. She was logged into her messages on it. The iPad was just sitting there on the kitchen counter like it always was. I found 8 months of messages. My best friend. Saved under his actual name because why would she change it? She had no reason to think I would ever look. I will not relay what they said in detail. But I will tell you the nature of them. Not just romantic. Not just physical. Planning. Conversations about me. About how I was oblivious. About how they needed a few more months. There was a message from my best friend, dated the Saturday I had been at Huntsville with my dad doing pre-winter maintenance on the cottage. While I was up there using the key he had a copy of, by the way, from the last time I had asked him to check on the place. That said, It feels wrong to be here, but I also don't want to leave. She had replied with a heart. He was at my house. While I was at the cottage. With the key I gave him, I set the iPad back down exactly as I found it. Went to the bathroom, ran the tap, and sat on the edge of the tub for a few minutes. Then I washed my face, went back to the living room, and when she came out of the shower I asked if she wanted to watch something. We watched half a season of a show I will never be able to watch again. She fell asleep on the couch. I sat there looking at her and felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. Certainty. The next morning I called in a half day. Waited until she left for work. I got to work myself. I went through our shared filing cabinet. The one we kept in the second bedroom we used as a home office. And I pulled out everything with my name on it. My T4s, my RRSP statements, my vehicle ownership, my engineering license documentation, my grandfather's watch that I kept in a lockbox in the back. I moved $12,000 from our joint account to my personal account. Half of what was in there, to the dollar. Then I changed the passwords on every account that was mine. Email, CRA, my account, my bank, everything. I made an appointment with a lawyer for Thursday. I had found a family law firm in Barrie the previous fall, when a colleague was going through a separation. I had the number saved because I had thought at the time I should know one, in case anyone I knew ever needed it. I took photos of every bank statement, uploaded them to my Google Drive, then created a second backup on a USB drive that I locked in my truck. I screen recorded the messages on the iPad, narrated the timestamps clearly while I was doing it, and emailed the file to my personal account with a subject line that just said documentation. Then I thought about what I actually wanted to do with this. I could walk in and blow it up. I could call my best friend and tell him I knew. I could be loud and dramatic, and emotionally satisfying, in the way that is also completely out of control. Or I could do it on my terms. I chose my terms. I texted my best friend. Told him I needed to talk through something about the wedding. Could he come by Thursday evening? My fiancé had a late client and wouldn't be home until 8. He said of course. Said he would bring beer. I texted my fiancé. Told her I had booked us a dinner reservation on Thursday at 7. The Italian place she liked downtown. Told her to head straight there from work. She sent back a string of heart emojis. I was not going to dinner. I was going to be home when my best friend arrived. Thursday came. I left work at 4. Set up my phone on the bookshelf in our living room, tucked behind a row of her textbooks, angled at the front entrance in the kitchen. Hit record. He showed up at 6:30, with a 6-pack of Creemore, and the same easy grin he had worn for 20 years. I let him in. Offered him a seat. He sat down on the couch, popped a beer, started talking about the playoffs. I waited until he was fully settled. Then I said, "How long?"
He's still.
I put my phone on the coffee table, the screen still recording. I said it again. "How long?" He tried at first as confusion. "What do you mean?" Then as concern. "Are you okay, man?" Then when I pulled up the iPad screen recording on my laptop and turned it toward him, he went quiet for a long time. 8 months, he finally said. I nodded. I already knew. I just needed him to say it. I told him to get out of my house. I told him that the key I had given him, for the cottage, for emergencies, I wanted it back before he left. He fished it out of his pocket without being asked twice. Set it on the coffee table next to my phone, walked out, left the Creemore. Then I called my fiancée and told her not to bother going to the restaurant. There was no reservation. I told her to come home. She walked in 20 minutes later looking confused, still in her work clothes, and I watched her face as she scanned the room and started to understand what she had walked into. I told her what I knew. Not the screaming version. The quiet version, which I think is actually worse. I told her I had found the messages. I told her I knew about the hotel in Collingwood. I told her I knew my best friend had been in our house while I was at the cottage. She cried. Real tears, I think. I no longer had any baseline for what was real from her. She tried to explain it as something that had happened to her rather than something she had done, which is a remarkable piece of psychology that I did not have the energy to engage with. She said she was not sure what she wanted. She said she was confused. She said she still loved me. I told her she had an hour to pack what she needed for the immediate term. I had already called our landlord that afternoon. We were renting, not owning yet, which in retrospect is the single luckiest financial detail of the last 3 years, and informed him I would be the sole tenant going forward and that my partner was vacating. I had also, before she arrived, removed her name from the joint account. She could retrieve her half from the bank tomorrow. I had already left it in there. 55 minutes later, she left with 2 large bags in her car. She called me 4 times from the driveway. I watched from the window and did not pick up. Here is the part where I need to explain what I did next, because it is the part that some people will judge. I did not post anything publicly. I want to be clear about that, because I have seen other stories where people blast everything onto social media, and I understand the impulse, but it was never something I wanted. What I did was more deliberate. I called her parents. We had a good relationship, or I had thought we did. I called her mother first and told her, calmly, what had happened, and that the wedding was off. I told her I was not angry at her, and that I hoped the relationship did not have to be collateral damage, but that she deserved to know the truth directly from me rather than through her daughter's version. Her mother cried. She said she was so sorry. She has texted me twice since then to check on me. I think she is a genuinely good person who raised a daughter who made genuinely bad choices. I called my best friend's parents, who I also knew well. His father has been friends with my dad since before I was born. I called his father and told him straight. That was a difficult 3 minutes of my life. His father was quiet for a long time, then said, "I don't know what to say to you, son." I said, "You don't have to say anything. I just thought you should know." He called my dad that evening. My dad called me. That conversation was harder than everything else combined. The day after, I went into the appointment with the family lawyer. Since we were not married, the legal situation was actually relatively clean. We had a joint account, which I had already separated. We had some shared furniture and appliances that I offered to let her keep in exchange for her removing her name from a storage unit we rented together. She agreed. My name was already the primary on the lease. The wedding deposit, $2,800 to the venue. I sent her a request for half through e-transfer with a note that said, "Venue deposit per our equal contribution." She sent the full $400 within the hour. I thought that was interesting. The venue was in Elora. I called them that same day and canceled. They held the deposit, which was in the contract. I had read the contract. I had also purchased wedding insurance through my bank when we booked, which covered cancellation due to relationship breakdown with documented cause. I submitted the documentation. The process takes 6 to 8 weeks, but I expect to recover most of it. I am an engineer. I read contracts. I purchase insurance. This is the most useful thing I can tell any person who is planning a wedding. My best friend lost his job at the dealership 3 weeks later. I did not cause that directly, but I also did not stop it. His sales manager was a guy I had met at a cottage weekend 2 summers ago, a decent man named. Actually, I won't use names. His manager called me to ask, directly, what had happened, because my best friend had been erratic at work, and the manager wanted to understand if there was a personal situation affecting his performance. I told him, factually, what had happened. I did not editorialize. The manager thanked me and said he appreciated me being honest. My best friend's name came off the dealership website that Friday. My fiancée is on a leave of absence from her clinic. I do not know the full circumstances, but her colleague, a woman I had met a few times at work events, texted me out of nowhere about 2 weeks after everything happened, just to say she was thinking of me and hoped I was doing okay. She mentioned, in passing, that things had been complicated at the clinic. I did not ask her to elaborate. The wedding guests, 87 of them, people we had sent save the dates to. I sent a brief, factual email. I did not go into detail. I said the engagement had ended, that I was grateful for their support and that the June date would not be proceeding. I got 61 replies within 48 hours. The overwhelming majority were from people expressing support for me specifically. That told me something about how people in my life felt about the dynamic of our relationship that I had not previously articulated to myself. My best friend tried to reach me once, about 10 days after a long text. Started with, "I know I have no right to ask you to hear me out." Then proceeded to ask me to hear him out. Said he was sorry in about 7 different ways. Said he had been in a bad place. Said he cared about me. Said he hoped someday I could understand. I read it. I did not reply. Understanding is not something I owe him. Explanation is not closure. My fiancé, I should practice saying that. Tried twice. Once a long voicemail that I deleted without listening to. Once a letter, actual paper in an envelope, that arrived 2 weeks ago. I have it. I have not opened it. I put it in the filing cabinet in the second bedroom, in a folder I labeled "Not Yet." Maybe someday I will read it. Maybe I will not. I do not feel urgency either way. I was at a site walk last week, out near Aurelia, a commercial build we are working on through the spring. It was one of those November days that Ontario does sometimes where it is cold. But the light is doing something extraordinary. Everything sharp-edged and gold. The kind of afternoon that feels like it is trying to apologize for what February is going to do. I was standing on the concrete slab looking out at the tree line and, I thought, with a clarity I was not expecting. I am 34 years old, and I have my whole life in front of me, and none of what I lost was actually what I thought it was. That is a strange thing to feel. It is not happiness exactly. It is something quieter and more durable than happiness. My dad drove down from Sudbury the weekend after everything happened. Did not call ahead, just showed up with a bag of groceries and spent Saturday helping me sort out the second bedroom. We moved the furniture around, put her things in boxes, made it into something that felt like it could become whatever I needed it to be. He did not say a lot. He made coffee. He told me once, when we were standing in the kitchen eating the soup he had made, that a man finds out who he actually is when things fall apart, and that he was proud of me. I am not sure I have ever needed to hear something more than I needed to hear that. My ex-fiancée and my best friend are apparently still seeing each other. I know this because the world is small and Barry is smaller and someone who knows both of us mentioned it in passing. Not unkindly, just as fact. I felt nothing when I heard it. Not nothing as in numb. Nothing as in genuinely free of it. Whatever they have built from what they did is theirs to live in. I want no part of it. My cousin set me up on a date last week. A woman she works with, a landscape architect, who just moved to the area from Vancouver. We went for coffee at a place on Dunlop Street and talked for almost 3 hours, and I drove home thinking, the world is still full of interesting people. I am not at the end of this, I know that. There are still nights when I sit in the living room, and the silence is a specific shape and I feel the outline of what I thought my life was going to be. That is real. I am not going to dress it up as something other than what it is. But I am also a man who reads contracts. Who documents carefully. Who does not act on a single data point. Who knows, from 20 years of engineering, that the strength of a structure is not determined by whether it takes stress. Everything takes stress, but by how it was built to absorb it. I built well enough. It turns out I can stand. If you made it all the way through this, thank you. This channel has always been about the stories people actually live through. And this one is mine. If it resonated, you know what to do. Like it, share it with someone who needs it. Take care of yourselves out there.